Yes, yes, indeed. In the 90s, Erica was brought to our home by yes, there's Pata.
To the right, and I raise it up and to the right. Oh my God, look at that. Oh, what? Oh my God. Put Samaj. That's a ring?
No, this is a pendant.
A pendant. Oh my God. But look at the detail in that.
Yeah.
Oh, that is amazing. What?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, family. As you said, what did you call it? Walking, a wearable meditation? What was the terminology?
Yeah, well, I call it wearable meditation. I call them collectively joy ari, which means to do, to make, or to create joy. Because when people get these things, they just scream and they make all kind of great sounds.
Absolutely. Yep.
And when I do this, I tell you, sometimes I tear up because I said, yes, ancestors, we have not forgotten you.
Yes.
They have stolen our stuff and have it in their museums, but we're going to make it live again. And it's amazing because the people who like to claim that they were the ancient Egyptians, I say, yeah, you were the Egyptians, but you were not the Kemites, that's for sure.
There's a
Conquerors.
question here from Donnell Peoples that asked the question about apprenticeship to carry on your legacy and jewelry creation.
I have, over the years, have had many apprentices. My son is one, a great apprentice, and his name is Elatan. You know, and I have had many apprentices over the years who have become very successful, and they do a lot of vending with their creations.
Mm-hmm.
My intent is to soon establish. I was speaking to my lawyer about establishing the Pata Foundation, because I also worked in leather. I've worked in wood. I carved wood, and I want to establish a foundation, and I will expect that our brothers and sisters would contribute to that, where we can have our brothers and sisters learning how to use their hands again.
Mm-hmm.
It's our art that fills up the museums of the Western world, because after all is said and done, it's the art that survives, and that tells the story of who we were, how we thought, and we want to show the ancestors that we have not forgotten, that we are continuing a process that was interrupted by those barbarians.
Wow.
So,
Ashe. Thank you for that, Baba.
It's very important that we do that. Yes, indeed.
Well, family, I am full and I am fulfilled.
So, when I wear the right.
The Mwene Congo, or kings of the Congo Empire, were ideologically and politically in bed with the Portuguese. They were obsessed with Portuguese goods and services and virtually allowed their so-called European brothers to manipulate the whole country, enslaving the very elite within Bakongo society. This ultimately led to the various civil wars that absolutely ravaged the country and left many Bakongo people devastated. Ironically, out of all the individuals within the empire, it was a young girl who decided to speak truth to power, initiating the first documented religious movement in Central Africa. What up, African world? It's Home Team here, and welcome back to another video of African history, culture, and worldview. By supporting this channel on Patreon, you're helping in the creation of these videos and supporting this content. If you'd like access to full courses and sources, or you simply want to show your support, you may do so by clicking the Patreon link in the description box below. Today, we're going to talk about the life of Kempa Vita, one of the most important African figures that we rarely speak about. What she was able to accomplish as a young woman was very impressive, especially because the Bakongo countryside was so politically unstable. The Bakongo people were introduced to Christianity with the arrival of the Portuguese in the 15th century, and many Bakongo nobles were baptized into the faith. Kempa Vita herself was baptized and was renamed Beatrice. Kempa was said to be a Congolese prophet and the founder of a Christian movement that became known as Antonianism. Her movement became very hostile toward the European missionaries in Congo. She was born around 1684 in a small provincial town near Mount Kibangu at the banks of the Mbedizi River in the eastern end of the Kingdom of Congo, today, part of Angola. As all Congolese who had been Catholics for nearly 2 centuries, she was baptized as soon as a priest passed her town. Kempe's family were members of the highest group of Congolese nobility, but unfortunately at her birth, the Kingdom of Congo was torn by armed turbulence. A period of civil war followed the death of King Antonio I at the Battle of Mbwila. As a result, the former capital of Mbanza Congo was abandoned in 1678 and left in ruins. Mbanza Congo was important because it was the ancient center of the Bakongo people, a symbol of civilization, history, and pride. The country was divided into major factions ruled by rival pretenders to the throne. The Capuchin missionary Fra Bernardo de Gallo reports that Kempe had her first vision when she was about 8 years old. In her vision, 2 Nkitas, or children from the other world, played with her and gave her a beautiful glass rosary. She started to get a strong inclination toward religion. As Kempavita grew older, her interest in the spiritual side of life increased, and it became obvious that she was gifted. She was trained to become an Nganga, meaning knowledge or skill in the Kakongo language, a person said to be able to communicate with the other world. Kempe became a particular kind of medium called Nganga Marinda, whose special ability was to address social problems as well as individual ones. This very respected office involved helping people who had problems originating from the other world. As a Marinda Nganga, she was also linked to the so-called Kempasi society, Kempasi meaning suffering. Young initiates were chosen from the community, like in the case of Kempavita, and put inside a secret and isolated enclosure. They were taught new languages as well as occult knowledge and had to swear an oath of secrecy. In 1703, Kempe and her neighbors left the Mbedizi Valley and joined the new colonists dedicated to restoring the former capital, Mbanza Congo. In August 1704, Kempavita fell ill with a mysterious sickness. She later reported to Fra Bernardo de Gallo that she died and that she was reborn as Saint Anthony. The saint had entered her dead body and she received the divine commandment to go and preach. She followed the example of the Capuchins and distributed her personal property. She set off to preach to the king of Kimbangu, but he refused to see her. She argued that the king was not determined enough to restore the kingdom and therefore she would do it herself. Another Bakongo woman supported Kempe, claiming that Kempe was the real voice of God. Both women preached against greed and jealousy amongst other things. Kempe claimed that she died each Friday and spent 2 days in heaven talking to God, just to return to earth on Mondays. While in this state, she learned that Congo must reunite under a new king. The civil war that had plagued Congo since the Battle of Mbwila in 1665 had angered Christ himself. She claimed that God ordered her to build a specific Congolese Catholicism and to unite the country under one king. Kempe's movement was more concerned with the moral principles of her faith and not the European traditionalisms that plagued it. She convinced the Bakongo that one day they will have a saint of their own, an African one. Kempe claimed that in her trips to heaven, God revealed to her the real history of Christianity. According to her visions, Jesus had been born in Mbanza Congo, the spiritual capital of all the Bakongo people. His baptism in Nazareth was only a fake name for his real place of baptism, which was located in the northern Congolese province of Nsundi. She also professed that his mother Mary was a Bakongo woman. Since one of the rivals to the Congolese throne refused to see her, she visited another. One by one, they all turned her and her followers away. Her followers saw in her an ideal ruler, a social revolutionary and peacemaker. If they could, they would have probably installed her as Queen of Congo, as she would no doubt fight against the greed and violence of the ruling kings. In 1705, her vision came to fruition, as herself and thousands of her loyal followers returned to Mbanza Congo and occupied it. Kempe was now the undisputed mistress of the royal capital and determined to fulfill her mission of restoration. Rumors of her powers had spread throughout the country. She built herself a small house behind the ruins of the cathedral and started preaching from there. To help her with her work, she began to commission her little Anthonys, as they were called, who were to become St. Anthony's missionaries all over Congo. The Antonian movement was becoming involved in the politics of the kingdom, and the political authorities were no longer able to control the forces that had been unleashed by her preaching. In 1706, Kempo
Babafururu erere o owo kanyenye eleibo eleri fun bati wasawo eibo rere bati wao enuwa ye iyagwa o eyakweloro Iamile Orum. Hello, my name is Maya Angelou. In a previous program, we discussed, or rather I talked about, Africanisms, positive Africanisms, then negative Africanisms, finally, African history. And in this program, I'm going to discuss when teaching African history can be construed as a negative effort. If a teacher teaches African history, the glory that was Africa, the tiny huts they could not keep from you. What reaches them makes them ill at ease and fearful. Today they shout prohibition at you. Thou shalt not this, thou shalt not that, reserved for whites only. You laugh. There's only one thing they cannot prohibit: the strong men coming on. The strong men getting stronger. Strong men, stronger, stronger, stronger. A story. I wonder, I would like very much to see that story told in pictures. Let's see it told in pictures. Ooh-hoo, hoo-doo, yeah, freedom. Ooh-hoo, hoo-doo, yeah, freedom. Ooh-hoo, hoo-doo, yeah, freedom. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Wosa-waba, hoo-doo, wosa-waba, hoo-doo, wosa-waba, hoo-doo, yeah, freedom. Mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm. Ooh, hoodoo, yeah, freedom. Ooh, hoodoo, yeah, freedom. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Strong men. Ooh, hoodoo, yeah, freedom. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Strong men. Mm-hmm. Wosa-waba, hoodoo, wosa-waba, hoodoo, wosa-waba, hoodoo, yeah, freedom. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. 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 As well as the positives. Imperative that you understand it. Around the states now, there are popping up dress shops, design shops, jewelry shops, art galleries, with black Americans finding some direct way back to the African heritage. It's imperative that those people understand when they say this dress is an African design, they must be sure whether it is an African design or an African influenced design. Now both are good, neither is better than the other. But if we are really going to teach African history, we must be able to say this dress is a traditional dress. This earring is a traditional earring. This is used by a chief. This has been influenced. It's imperative. Now, in San Francisco, we went to a shop, the Bayete shop, and we found not only African-influenced dresses, jewelry, objects of art, musical instruments, but we also found the traditional ones. Al, you're really a survival. You're not a revival if you can carve ivory and carry on like that. I want to ask Pat, do you have a business arrangement with people in Africa? I mean, were they your friends
From the beginning, they were our friends, yes. And now we
see.
have more or less a business arrangement.
We are in the Bayete shop on Fillmore Street. The shop is owned by Mr. and Mrs. Roberts. Now, this is Al Roberts,
Hi.
and this is Pat Roberts.
Hello there.
We were wondering, we're dealing with...
Well, we saw the need to bring awareness to the young black people of today. There has been taught for many, many years the feeling that black people had no culture, no heritage, and as a matter of fact that the continent of Africa itself was a continent of barbarians. We're trying to dispel that image, and one of the easiest ways that we've found to do it is to bring the art and the craft of Africa home to American black people. I'll say maybe about 1% of our customers have been to Africa.
Good grief.
And they've just been influenced by coming into the shop and knowledge, of Africa. I don't know what it is now that's bringing this awareness other than what we have contributed and along with a few other things, but only about 1% I would think.
You yourself have never been, is it?
I've never been to Africa.
And neither has Al.
No.
Well, you'll be so welcome. You'll walk down the street and people will never know. They'll start speaking to you in Fanti or Swahili or something. And because you look a typical African lady.
Well, I've been told this by many, of course.
That's right. Now, Lula is wearing a dress here.
Chicory,
Yes.
chicory cloth
Yes.
from the Chicory tribe in East Africa.
That's a beautiful cloth. And you